Cameras up now.
Okay. Hello, I'm Penta, and I'm here a little later than expected today to talk to you about how, yes, visual novel streams can be exciting. Now, you may have heard or think otherwise. After all, they tend to involve a lot of reading and not much action in the moment-to-moment gameplay. Now, and in a game focused on narrative, it seems like there might be no reason to play if you already know the story. There's this question of who wants to sit there and watch someone read? But then you might have also heard that streams are a great form of marketing and, oh no, you're making a visual novel. Well, I'm here to talk to you about how there are visual novels that have been widely streamed. This is a somewhat dated example by now, but Doki Doki Literature Club is one such example. At the time of its release, the bait-and-switch horror elements helped it surprise viewers. However, I include it because I have this kind of interesting statistic. In their March 2018 demographic survey, the Doki Doki Literature Club subreddit found that 57% of their respondents first heard of the game from a Twitch or a YouTube playthrough. A subreddit is far from representative for all DDLC fans, but they had almost 6,000 responses, which is not an insignificant number. My point is that you should care about streams because, with the exception of paid streams, it's free word-of-mouth advertising, and it's also how many people find out about games these days. A more recent example is Slay the Princess. This is a wildly successful game that's been streamed by many people. Now, this is anecdotal, but even though they're already successful, a stream from someone well-known can still be a significant bump in sales. In both cases, I'm not suggesting these games did well because they were streamed, but they're examples of, hey, yes, it's possible for visual novels to do perfectly fine on streams. In Slay the Princess's case, one of the developers, Tony, has written before about how streamers were part of their outreach from the get-go, and they really boosted early awareness of their game. So, this talk explores how you can make your visual novel more appealing to streamers. We'll go over this idea of streamability with some example games, and there'll be some thoughts at the end about how to find streamers. Briefly, who am I? Now, I do the art over at Fine Feathered Fiends, along with programming. Our current project is Draculesti, a gothic horror romance based on the novel Dracula. I've been here a few times now. Last year's talk was on market research, as I also have a degree in business analytics. And the year before that was a talk on art direction. If you vote me in again next year, I'm sure it'll be for something completely different, and it'll be on time. Now, what makes something streamable? It helps if it's short, replayable, and interactive. I don't mean gameplay in the usual sense when I talk about this. Interactive is more about how streamers, their chats, and the game all interact with each other. I'd also like to note some genres are more popular to stream than others. There are quite a few cozy, lighthearted streamers as well as ones who focus on horror. Even variety streamers who play a wide variety of games may have a theme or tone preferences, or their audience may expect them to play certain types of games. Now, there are also points to be made about how popular multiplayer is among other types of gameplay, but I'm approaching this talk as if your visual novel has few, if any, gameplay elements aside from reading and making choices. The qualities I highlight here apply just as well to, say, RPGs. Now, let's start with length. This is straightforward. You get one stream, don't expect more than an hour of anyone's time. If your game is long, you can have a shorter demo. Game demos don't have to show the beginning of the game. You can find the juiciest, smallest piece you can serve with minimal context. This helps for streams, sure, but it's good to think about for demos in general. Because if your story takes a long time to hook people in, not as many folks will bite if you start at the beginning. Replayability can go a long way towards making a game easier to stream. Because if multiple people can play your game and have different experiences, it's helpful for both streamer interest and getting people to play it themselves rather than only watch someone else. Branching paths in the writing is an obvious way to get this kind of feeling. Going back to Slay the Princess, one thing it's known for is the amount of choices it has and the variety in its branches. Watching different streams and playing the game yourself can be very different experiences. Now, this can easily blow out your game's scope, but in Slay the Princess's case, the simple, sketchy art and limited cast help to keep it reasonable for a small team to make. Here's a less drastic example of branching from Draculesti. Yes, we have multiple routes, but our writer and director, Mads, is good at narrative design and adds smaller branches that don't take a lot of work to implement but can make a big impact on people. This choice, for example, is one that a surprising amount of people agonize over. One of Dracula's brides has just baked you a horrible sweet and asked how it was. What do you do? No, this doesn't create any major forks, but it influences her opinion of you, which can have ripple effects in later scenes. Additionally, it's an example of a stat we use, boldness, that can create some larger branches, but in many cases it just influences smaller details. How to write branching narratives and how to do so without bloating your scope is outside my scope right now, but it's something you should learn if you want to make your games replayable. Replayability can also come from customization, which lets players express themselves. In the context of something like streams, streamers have different themes and personalities and vibes, and being able to express that in a game can be appealing. In particular, customizable main characters are really popular in visual novels right now. Here's a recent example from A Date with Death, and you can also customize your room there. There are a lot of examples of this kind of game now. Phoenix gave a talk here last year about this topic with tips for how to include customization while keeping your scope reasonable. You've probably noticed I think about scope a lot, and you should too. Touch Starved has an example of both branching paths and a sort of customization in their origin concept. Drawn from RPGs, this keeps essentially the same main character and story, but with differences in flavor. It's yet another way for people to get different experiences from the same game. Replayability can also come from choices the game makes for you. Catacomb Prince stars an undead prince who has to continue the monarchy while searching for his killer. Said killer is randomized for the first 3 playthroughs. As far as I'm aware, this was not made with streamers in mind, but randomization is another way to get a sense of replayability in a game, and here's an example from a visual novel. Oh, I see a chat. Oh, okay, cool. A. Do I have a technical problem I don't know about? Okay,
You're
someone can
good,
see the
Penta.
chat.
The Apple's just talking.
Okay. Now, this is tricky to write around, so you don't see it often in visual novels or otherwise. Just get the red one dot, you gotta look at it, Anyways, replayability. Now, short replayable games are easier to stream, but to me, the holy grail of streamer appeal is interactivity. So what do I mean by this? Interactivity here is about how a streamer, their chat, and the game all interact with each other. Usually it's just the streamer and their chat talking about, what's being played, but it's possible to get your game involved. Twitch and YouTube both have APIs that let you interact with their services. If you have the programming chops for it, you can use Python to access these in RenPy. So for Draculusty, I created the Draculusty daemon, a bot that lets a streamer's chat vote on choices. I was inspired just by playing games with choices and watching others do the same. It's common to get outside input on things like, hey, what do you think I should do? And streamers often set up their own polls for this. So the only thing this bot does is it joins the streamer's chat during a vote, and then it records those votes to display an in-game result. Here's an example of what that looks like. When the daemon is enabled, a vote button appears on choices, and then people type their vote as a number. The winning choice is shown in-game. Now, the average player probably doesn't care about this feature, but streamers love it, and it really helps us stand out. The setup for it is quite simple, as all you have to do is enter your Twitch username, then authenticate. You can change the vote length, and in the future I do want to add some more options. I couldn't find any other visual novels with a feature like this. If you know, please tell me. Now, as you may imagine, this was not simple to make. I won't get too into the weeds about technical details here, but I modified the PyTwitch API package to work in RenPy, and then I used several Amazon Web Services, such as Secrets Manager, to keep the API key for the Twitch bot out of the game's files, because you really do not want to leave API keys in your files. AWS has generous free tiers at the time of this talk. The services we use cost us 80 cents per month. If we got struck by influencer lightning and thousands of people use the bot multiple times a day, then we might have some logistics issues, but this is very unlikely. And yes, the code will be publicly available. I've been saying this for months now, if you know me, but it's still quite rough and won't be easy to use. This is because I'm quite busy making the rest of the game right now. But I do really want more games to have access to this kind of thing, and I do have some future plans like YouTube API integration and better responsiveness during votes. Now, you can do more for viewer interaction than vote on choices. The Disco Elysium Companion is a Twitch extension, not a chatbot, that lets viewers do several things. There's voting, yes, but this screenshot shows how viewers can influence stats during skill checks. And then the outcomes of those checks affects what happens. It was made by Thomas, the streaming toolsmith, who sounds like a Dark Souls character when I introduce him like that. He also made Twitch extensions for Baldur's Gate 3 and Cult of the Lamb that you could check out for inspiration. Another notch up the complexity scale is Text to Skyrim, a mod created by the streamer Blurbs. As the tweet says, text-to-speech is used so that viewers can have NPCs voice their chat messages. It's been expanded to other actions by now, such as playing animations and giving items or written notes. The last point in this tweet is about how if the character a chat member voices dies in the game, they're temporarily banned from his channel. There's videos of his streams on YouTube that you can check out. Are they funny? I'll leave that for you to decide. But I think they're quite creative, and there's parts of this that could be replicated in Ren'Py. For example, Ren'Py has text-to-speech capability, though I'll note that it's intended for accessibility use rather than it's the self-voicing feature. However, remember that you don't need to add complex mechanics like this to get something like viewer interaction. All I've done for Dracula SD is the bare minimum I could with chat votes on choices, and like I said earlier, it's worked very well for us. Finally, I'd like to talk a bit about how you can find streamers for your visual novel. Media outreach is a very big topic, so here's a small slice, because after all, what good are all these features if no one uses them? Dracula SD is once again the case study because I happen to know a few things about the behind-the-scenes development. And here I'm actually citing our director for this section, Mads, who did most of the legwork and outreach alongside Lal, our social media manager. They ended up with about 130 people to email and a solid process I'd like to share with you. So, how can you find at least 130 people to email about your game? Step 1, identify comp titles which are games similar to yours. Search for streamers who played those games, and then filter those results to viable options. Now, when you're finding games similar to yours or comp titles, you can think about these 4 things: gameplay, genre, audience, and recency. Of course, there's other ways you can ID comp titles, but this did well for our outreach. I've already talked about Slay the Princess twice now, but because both this and Black Tabby's other game, Scarlet Hollow, are relevant for us in terms of their presentation and narrative design. The House of Fata Morgana is on the same wavelength as Dracula HD. It's a big inspiration for both of us, and people who play that may also like our game. A Date with Death. We're making a BL game with attractive men. The connection here is what people want to see in both games, messing with attractive men. And of course, we keep an eye out for other vampire visual novels. Vampire Therapist came out around the same time as our demo, so Mads looked for streamers who played that. Now, for finding streamers, a great tool to know about is Solynome. This is a lovely website maintained by a guy named David, where you can search for a game to find who streamed it on Twitch, along with other statistics. And once you have some comp titles, you can search them on here. As of this talk, here's the results for Dracula HD's demo. So far, we've had 37 streams on Twitch and some YouTube playthroughs. Not all of these are people we reached out to, and whether or not 37 is a lot of streams depends on your point of view. Considering our list was 130, it may seem quite small, but to me it's a pleasant surprise. After all, I spent all that time on that chatbot thinking, will anyone stream this though? Now, once you have all these results, you want to think about who's viable to actually reach out to. So, some things to consider. Think about their vibes. Are there any red flags about them? Are they involved in any scandals? Just how do they come across to you? What about their availability? Are they on hiatus, retired? Do they still play your genre? This can change between you making your list and you going to send emails, which happened for us in a few cases. And then relevance. Are they a good fit for your game? If so, why? Keep notes on these as you go, and we used a very large spreadsheet. Now, a little more on is your game a good fit for that streamer? Some other thoughts. Yes, look at what people usually play, but think about what their streams are like. Streamers want to play things that both they and their audience can respond to. Someone may personally like a game, but they might not stream it, or it might not do well as a stream because it doesn't mesh with their audience. So yes, you'll need to watch people at least a little bit to get a sense of this, and try to ID what their chat positively responds to. Now, as a quick vibe check, you can think about whether or not you'd be comfortable watching their stream. If you have anxiety or something similar, the answer may be no by default, but just think about if there's something in your game you wouldn't want a specific streamer to react to before you ask them to play. And by the way, no, you don't need to be present at streams, and even if you are, sometimes it's better to just lurk, but people may ask. And some final thoughts. To wrap things up, I go back to a couple of the points I brought up in the beginning, the arguments I've personally seen for why visual novels aren't great games to stream. Now, don't think of them as just reading. This is a visual novel development conference, so I'm sure you all escaped this trap, but do remember it. When people are invested in a story, it's fun to watch it unfold, especially if you're invested too. A short replayable game or demo goes a long way towards making your visual novel more streamable. But if you can find ways for viewers to interact with your game, that makes them more likely to invest in what happens during a stream. Finding people to stream your game can be a hard process, but hopefully some of what we've talked about here can help. It's true that your visual novel probably won't do numbers like League of Legends on streams, but that doesn't mean you can't do well for yourself. And one more thing, you can make your dramatic gothic horror game only for someone to play Lethal Company Clownhorn over it, and that's okay. This isn't someone we reached out to, but I'm so glad that Rain the Fallen Angel found our game and enjoyed it. You may get some culture shock checking out streams if it's not something you do on your own time, but I say keep an open mind about it when you're looking for people. You'll probably meet some interesting ones. And yes, I'm available for questions now.
All right, you're gonna have to wait through a couple of clown emojis in the chat because what you closed out on.
Yes, now I have to. Okay, well, I accidentally stopped showing my screen a little early, but you saw what that looked like.
All right, questions. Okay, here's a question. Will streamers be turned off by my game because of my art style? Well, or my lack of art fundies?
So I would actually say no, with the caveat that I do believe there is kind of a minimum threshold for art, but it's a lot lower than you might think. Especially how you feel about art can be very different than how other people respond to your art. I've seen plenty of things I think, I'm an artist, so this is kind of funny for me to say, but I was just talking about this the other day with Mads, where for me, the art in a game is kind of like the little candy trail that gets you to go to the box with the string, so then the story snaps you in and keeps you there.
And then, of course, someone just posted some 7th expansion.
Yeah, I'm excited to look at the chat backlog here later.
Yeah. Yeah, Nika is right there. Anyways, got another question. Voice acting or no voice acting?
So even if you have voice acting, make sure it can be disabled. One of the differences I would say in watching visual novel streams is people read out the dialogue. How you feel about this, up to you, but it is something that a lot of people enjoy doing when they stream visual novels. A lot of them are, voice actors practicing.
Cool. And are there any potential non-obvious content theme gotchas that can put a game outside the realm of what most streamers would consider?
Anything that breaks Twitch's terms of service. If you look at their list of banned games on Steam or banned games to stream on Twitch, I think the soccer games are on there. Like there are a couple of visual novels. I think Lady Kill and Bind might be on there. But aside from things that obviously break terms of service, depending on who you approach, you can get surprisingly good experiences. Personal example is Dracula. She has some pretty heavy sections about, like being trans in the 1930s. And I was kind of braced for impact every time it would come up on a stream, but people handled it well, and despite the overall like lighthearted natures a lot of streams had, in some moments of pathos, people would kind of take things seriously and not play the Lethal Company clown horn over it. Really just depends on the streamer.
Okay, so someone's got talking about our games are mental health focused. We call them cozy, crunchy, wholesome because they are comfy but still talk about sensitive topics. How would you handle when a streamer doesn't handle that well? For example, making an insensitive joke during a critical moment. Uh, and this would be about viral moments from the streamer that you didn't choose yourself.
So this is one reason why the vibe check before you approach someone's really important. If you approach them and they kind of have a moment like this on the stream, it's very awkward. It's also another reason why when I first tune into something, I will not say anything. I just silently lurk to get a sense of, hey, what's the current atmosphere? Is this kind of going okay for me to reveal myself? Um, if it happens during a stream, you know, you want to be very careful how you interact with people streaming, especially if it's something that's going to be recorded for a while. When I think about how things can go, there are many opportunities for people in general to stream your game, but it only takes one bad impression or one bad interaction kind of change their impression of you. So I would say just don't get involved. Let people approach your game how they approach it. And if you do get involved, don't make sure it's linked to that streamer. You just don't want to start beefs with people.
Okay, another question is, what is your opinion on possible stream integrations that allow the chat to directly impact events in the game or the sprite's appearance, such as spawning items, point-and-click scenes, or making your dating sim love interest temporarily bald? Would that be attractive to streamers as an additional entertainment, or would it turn them off?
Oh, absolutely. Again, like I was saying earlier, there are more ways you can add interactivity than something like voting on choices, and this is really unexplored territory with visual novels. I think you can do some really creative stuff if you think about it.
All right. Yeah, there are people are now commenting on just various things that are inappropriate for Twitch for various reasons. They're like, my game cannot be on Twitch because of, and yep, your game cannot be on Twitch because of.
Yeah,
that's just.
I will say things I have seen kind of get under the radar on Twitch. If you do not have any explicit visual content, they're surprisingly permissive, but also, the more risque your game is or the more it toes a line, the fewer number of streamers are going to want to like take the gamble on it.
Okay, so another person has, other than Twitch, are there places we should be streaming our games?
I highly recommend YouTube. Like, Twitch is the main streaming platform, but more and more people are using YouTube's live feature. That's one reason why I want to add YouTube integration to like the thing I made and why I think you should think about it for streaming.
Mm-hmm. Some people have just said that there are some things that are banned on Twitch that are not banned on YouTube. Like the terms of service obviously don't line up exactly.
Yeah. So you just gotta think about that when you're designing your game. It's difficult to know exactly what people will allow on their platform because they can also be kind of hypocritical about it.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of VTubers are like, yeah, I just got hit with a ban or something because of something I did in this room.
Yeah.
Everyone's navigating it. All right, we're about at time. Everything kind of, I am now dynamically just like fudging to schedule it. This is going to be hilarious. But thank you for having your talk.
Thank you for squeezing me in at an interesting time, keeping it fresh and exciting, I guess.
Yeah, we are just rolling with this conference. It's fine. It was really cool of you to just jump up and speak when I just kind of looked at you. So thank you.
Of course.
Okay, the next person who is up for speaking, hold on as I get the schedule out of here. What's the story? I believe that is Matto.
That would be correct. Yeah. Yes.
Matto, you're up.
Hi. Should I just put my slideshow up here, share it or something?
Put your slides and you're free to go whenever.